Ready to skyrocket your business and experience exponential growth? Welcome to Grow with Gary, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the ins and outs of business and entrepreneurship, bringing you compelling guest interviews with business experts, offering actionable insights and inspiring stories that humanize success. So grab your colleagues and get ready to unlock the secrets to success. Now, here's your host, business coach and owner of MICU Growth, Gary MICU Jr.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Grow with Gary, Modern Life and Business. Of course, I'm your host, Coach Gary, and we have a very special guest today, Tiffany, who is going to share some of her experiences as a 10X business coach, as a mother, and of course, as a badass businesswoman. So, Tiffany, I will turn it over to you if you want to give us a brief intro, and then we'll dive into some of our great questions.
Yes, I am Tiffany C. Everett, social media real estate agent and 10X business coach. One of the things I love to do is to minister the gospel in each of the types of conversations that I have when I'm doing my social media. But I love helping businesses, entrepreneurs, and faith-based businesses 10X their business in every area of social media, sales, and marketing. And so I learned about Grant Cardone, I think it was 2017, around that time. Okay. And, during that time, I didn't really have as much, wasn't making as much as I'm making right now in my business. But, with the training, with the accountability groups, with the motivational meetings that we have every week, my mindset has been changed exponentially, and just, getting more courageous and being able to teach those things to my son. I'm a single parent of a son who was born with hydrocephalus. If you've never heard of hydrocephalus before, that is fluid on the brain. Basically, fluid builds up in the cerebellum, and then there's this device called a shunt that has to be implanted inside of the person's brain, and it pretty much drains the fluids from the cerebellum down through the side of their neck and into their stomach. So with that, in and of itself, has been a journey, but with persistence, focusing on the goals and solutions rather than focusing on the problems themselves, we have been able to overcome and be able to do things that we were told was not going to be possible. So I'm so happy to be here with you, Gary, to share my story, share my journey, and thank you for having me.
Yes, of course, and incredible. I think right out of the gate there with some of your experiences on all fronts, right? Seeing the mindset change, the business grow, and your successes, right, as a parent as well. And I know with my little girl, I just think of everything we can do to make their world better, and you've certainly taken that step every step of the way. So I'm wondering, and thinking of our kids, right? Oftentimes entrepreneurial insights or kind of that draw starts off at a very young age, and other times it doesn't. But I'm curious to see if maybe for yourself it was in your childhood where you had those first experiences or those inklings that you'd wanted to get into business, or if it came later, then what would you say is maybe the earliest that you started to see business as a path forward?
I'm glad you asked that, because as you were getting ready to prepare the question, the first thing I thought about was elementary school, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in elementary school, they had, I don't know, back then my parents would buy us, like, I don't know if you ever had these, but they were like little um uh things that you put the ink on it, and they would have happy faces or like encouraging words. It was like stamps, and you
Oh,
would
okay.
take the
Yeah.
stamp and you would stamp it on a piece of paper, and when you stamped it on a piece of paper, some type of image would come out. And the images that I had were all motivational, like they were fun. They had like cute little sayings and things like that.
Oh, cool.
So I said, okay, I wonder how I can make money with this. I was this little kid, right?
Okay.
So I actually learned how to make, um, I learned how to make, uh, you know how like the stamps have this little glue on the back of it, and all you really have to do is put water on it and the stamp will automatically stick to the paper.
Yeah.
Well, I learned how to do that with glue because we would play around with glue. So I would
Okay.
take the glue and I would rub the glue all on the back. Well, first I would take the stamps and I would stamp it in certain little square sections to make sure that it would be all, I could square it off properly. And then I would put glue on the back of it, wait until the glue dried up. And then I would sell those little teeny weeny pieces of square papers for 1 cent.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so when
So
you
that
say
was my
elementary school, is this like eighth grade or is this like third grade?
No, this was like I don't even remember. I think it was I just remember being elementary school, like
Okay,
probably third, fourth grade, somewhere around there. But it
very
was
young.
really young. I don't, I just have this image of I remember doing it and just wanting to and selling them for like 1 cent. And then after that, I had the opportunity to be a sitter. So
Okay.
that was like one of my first jobs. I had the opportunity to babysit, so I was able to do that for quite some time. But I, always had this desire to want to find ways to be able to be creative and make money. And my grandmother was really, I think she was an entrepreneur. So just
Okay.
watching her and the way that she went out and conversated with people, because she took me everywhere she went, that was one of the things that really sparked that entrepreneurial spirit. Just being able to spend a lot of time with her and my grandfather really helped me to develop those skills really early.
Okay, good, and obviously you're still using them. So they set and they took that hook. And I'm curious then. So if that's your earliest and some of your earliest, was there maybe a pivotal moment where it went from the penny stamps to there's something bigger to this, right? Was there maybe a moment you realized um, I want my own business at some point, whether it's maybe it's I don't know how, I don't know what it'll be even, but I just feel at some point I will have that. Is there a specific point for you when maybe that realization came, or was it more gradual?
Yeah, it's always been something that I wanted to do. I just didn't have the know how or wasn't really sure how to get it started or make it happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Also thinking about, I remember when there was a period where I, wasn't working because I had to care for my son. And it was a period of about 3 years, I believe it was. And so during that time, I found, was able to do like these things in this thing in the mail where it come and you get to try different products.
Okay.
And I kind of still do that right now, but you get, I would fill out these surveys, and then the surveys would like send you like different soaps or
Okay.
lotions, juices, and things like that in the mail to try. And then you basically would give them your advice on how you feel, and you would get paid that way. And I was like, one of the things that I wanted to always do is I said, if I had ever had the opportunity to be able to help people, then I would take that opportunity to do so. And that's when it started in 2015 is when I actually started a business. and was able to get started in that area. But I think early on during that time, around my son time, I said, this is an area I would like to pursue further. It's just that that wasn't the right time to do it. I even tried to do real estate at the time, but I kept failing the test. It just wasn't the right time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. But that was really the time where you were like, I know I want to do this, and then the journey from there really started to take shape, up till and then in 2015 when it became a reality, and then obviously growing ever since then. Okay. Good. And I know
Right.
that obviously with that journey and with all journeys, there's always obstacles, adversity, and I know that you had said for yourself there. Taking that time, that period of time to be very closely taking care of your son, studying for the test at that time, and define that it wasn't quite that time. Um, would you say that of all the obstacles you faced, of everything that you've overcome, whether they be personal, professional, financial, mindset, or otherwise, is there maybe one or two that stand out as those key things that you look back and say, I'm so glad I overcame that, because it's allowed me to be where I am today?
Absolutely. The one of the biggest ones are the two was the real estate examination and helping my son get through to where he's at right now, especially when, you have people that, early on that said that this was a bad idea to even, go down this avenue and have this child. Um,
Wow. Wow.
you wonder if it's a good, if you made a mistake, in moving forward. But I always believe that, I felt that God chose me for this journey and for this mission. And for that, He would put people and places along the way to carry me through. And that's exactly what happened. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
I think for the most part, being a single parent with a son that was born with hydrocephalus really was a challenge to get through. It was only because I never heard of hydrocephalus, right?
No,
And no one
neither
in
did
my
I
family
before
had
we
heard of
talked
it.
about
Yeah, it was new. And so there was research that needed to go into. It was a search for belonging, search for a support system, search for someone to help to understand um, what is it, to go through speech therapy, to go to occupational therapy. Like
it.
and it was just, God, my foundation in God, knowing that He put me here for a reason, and that was going to be the thing that was going to carry and get us through.
Yeah.
And it was just staying focused and grounded in that. And then that real estate exam, oh my gosh, took me over 10 times to pass that examination.
Wow.
And it was like, from the time I think he was like 2, I tried to take it. And then again when he was 4, and then again when he was like 15. Like, it was just constantly trying to pass the examination because my grandmother, right? She was
Mhm.
like, you gotta become a real estate agent. That's what she did, for over
Ah,
30
okay.
years.
So kind of into the
And
family.
right, she was very successful at it and really wanted one of her, grandkids or so to go down this route as well. So, and I did. And unfortunately, before I could close my first sale, she did pass away. So, and I felt like I wanted to call her, and then I said, I can't because
Yeah.
she's not there. But
Yeah.
she was here long enough to see me get through that journey because she kept saying, you gotta try again. I know you could do this. She believed in me. She knew I could do it. I believed I could do it. It was just a really challenging thing. And I think the two of those really shaped and motivated and molded me into being the person that I am today, with just that consistency and not wanting to give up, and continue to push through and pursue and know that it could be done.
So Tiffany, as you were saying then, I think one of the things that really stood out to me was you had said consistency. And I think that's vital in all areas of life, whether it be business, personal. through adversity, even through easy times. We have to show up and be present, and that's the consistency. But then you also were talking about your persistency, right? Pushing through when there are challenges, when there are adversities. And one of the things that really stood out, and you hinted at it, but I wanted to call more attention to it because it really struck me, was the strong will and not letting others' opinions influence you and sway you off of what you know is right. So I'm curious, how much you feel that is a part of your story, and what the foundation for that strong will maybe comes from. Is it your childhood? Is it just your nature, or maybe is it a large part due to your faith?
It is a part of my childhood. I'm the oldest,
Hmm.
and so I had to be, I was the one that had the most, what is that word I'm looking for? More was expected, pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay.
And again, I was really, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and my grandfather, they basically worked on a lot of construction sites and things like that. And I would be
Okay.
there to help in certain areas when it came to like painting little things or changing doorknobs and things like that. So it was just because I believed that I was just the oldest and I had more responsibilities,
Hmm.
that it just wasn't an option to quit. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
wasn't there. It was required to continue to push over, even when I had, obstacles that came in my life, and when I went through difficulties in school. It, calling, being bullied, and called names, I still had to go to school and I
Yeah.
still had to
Yeah.
push through. I still had homework that needed to be done. I
Hmm.
still needed to get through the classes and get good grades. Despite all of that, I still had it to get home. So I think that it does come from there. And then also, from, I want to say my dad may have played a major role in that too, in that he would buy me things that I had to figure out how to make it work.
Okay.
So I remember we got, yes, I remember the year that we got a uh, Apple computer, and the computer was, hey, here's your computer. And I was like, what do I do with it? I don't even know what to do with it. But I had taken classes in the school, but it's different when you're taking classes in the school, and it's different when you have one at home and you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to put this whole thing together. So I had, some little booklets, and at the time it was tapes. You put the tape inside of it.
Hmm.
And so I, tried my best to try to figure it out. But I want to say that a lot of times, it was my responsibility to try to get some of these things put together, whether it was a toy, that needed to be put together, had to read the directions and figure out how to put that together, or just reserving, tickets for flights and things like that. So I had those responsibilities early on to
Yeah.
perform. And, also I was involved in like oratory contests and uh, different types of shows mom would have us put us in and things like that. So
Okay.
I think that it was just early on in the childhood that the expectation was there, and that was just the thing that I needed to do, was just to get through that so I can get to the next thing.
Okay. Yeah. And through that, you've mentioned your grandparents, you've mentioned your parents. Um, I'm wondering then, as far as like mentors and guidance goes, right? So it sounds like they were very influential in your development and where you are now. And I'm wondering, how directly maybe they took on those roles, and if there's anyone else that you would also say is maybe a mentor or a guide to you, and how they influenced you as well.
Absolutely. So one of the great things that I am grateful for is that for different areas in my life, the Lord was able to put certain people in places that would be able to help me in that specific area, from either, mentors from a job, just teaching me how to file papers at a job, or how to answer phones properly, how to um, dress girly, from how to handle, how to present myself. I had people that were in my life as I was growing up that were also I was able to work with and understand the logistics of working in corporate settings.
Okay.
So that also shaped, me moving forward too. Those mentors, and in one point when I did decide to start a business, I hired my first coach, and I said I really didn't know what to look for. I didn't know what to expect, but I did hire someone because I saw that this person was doing the thing that I wanted to learn how to do. And so I hired them as my first coach. And then a couple of years later, that's when I learned of Grant Cardone and started to become more involved in the community as well. So I think, for different phases of my life, there have been people and places that have been able to pour into me and show me a different way of doing things in order to get better at
Mm-hmm.
whatever the craft is that I'm trying to do at that time in period.
Good. That's wonderful. And I think especially to have the wide variety of mentors, right? As you said, throughout your life, you had people at those key moments. And I think that's
Yeah.
such a blessing to be able to recognize that. And maybe whether at the time if you recognize it, or if later you look back and see that, then it's so important to see how that was. And then obviously now you're oftentimes becoming that mentor, becoming that coach, quite literally, to your clients and helping others then, which, as you said, was part of what sparked that journey. That was really that turning point of wanting to help others. I'm wondering though, from your mentors, maybe it's one thing, maybe it's several things, but are there certain pieces of guidance or advice that stayed with you that really had an outsized or a lasting impact? And I'm wondering if you might share maybe one or two examples of what those might be.
One that stood out to me as soon as you asked that question was the one from my grandmother,
Hmm.
because I had a severe case of psoriasis,
Okay.
and I often would cover up.
Hmm.
And one of the things that she said to me was, stop doing that. God made you perfect. You are capable of doing, whatever your heart desires. And, she would say, stop covering up. Like when I went to hang out with grandma, I wasn't allowed to do that.
Okay.
I had to, accept who I am and who I was at that time, and just be who God has ordained me to be. Also, I was picked at because of my eyes when I was in elementary school, and so I had to, right, yeah. So so I had to learn to accept me and accept who the gifts that I have and focus on those things. And that's the other thing that I also did into my son, was to just focus on the things that you are strong at, focus on your
Hmm.
strengths and get better at those, and not so much focus on the things that you don't really have a lot of control of.
Wow. Yeah.
um, I mean, of course, you can go and you can get surgery. I mean, there are things that you can do, to enhance yourself. For the most part, I actually went and got braces. But at the end of the day, just accepting and loving you is
Yeah.
definitely what's been that thing that she instilled in me early on, to just love me, and just be thankful that I can walk and talk and see and just have, and be able to do things. She said, just be grateful for those things.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful, especially if we think of like today, right? Today's day and age, it's so oftentimes the presentation, the material that's really what's center stage. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? So if we don't accept ourselves, then even if others do, to what end, right? So I think that is such a powerful lesson and something that it helps in every setting, right? If you don't accept yourself, but others see you as maybe successful or powerful or whichever positive attributes, but you don't accept yourself, then you can't truly be happy, even if those things maybe are true. And in the opposite spectrum, if others are maybe poking fun or rejecting you in some way or in some other negative attributes, right? But we accept ourselves, then we can persevere through that and get to a point where we're in a better circumstance. We're around people who care about us for us instead of whatever the flavor of the day is for styles or this, that, or the other. And I think that's so important for I think as entrepreneurs to know that, right? Everybody's journey is different. And that's one of the things I know as a coach I focus on, and I know that we've talked about this in the past, is the danger of comparison. So when you take that lesson that you've learned and you accept yourself, the comparisons start to melt away, um, if not completely in some cases, because it no longer matters. So I think, boys, that's really powerful, and I see certainly why that stuck with you. Um, and in that accepting yourself and in the paths that you've chosen to go down, and obviously at certain points you've had to make decisions, as we all do. And I'm wondering if there's a decision that you would say was your riskiest, one where you knew that you were really putting everything out on the line, but you made that decision and it's carried you through to where you are today.
Absolutely. Just joining Cardone Enterprises mentorship program
Mm.
was definitely putting it all out there.
Okay.
That was a 1 year mentorship program. I'd never spent that kind of money before on a program to enhance me, my mindset, and my, marketing abilities, confidence level. Never had done that before. So I believe that that was significant. And then on top of that, becoming a certified 10X business coach as well, to where it's like, all right, this is it. This is it. This is make it or make it, right?
I love that. I
Make it
love
or
that.
make it. That's all to it. Make it or make it time, right? And
Yeah.
so we're going to make this work. We're going to do this 100%. We're going to stay focused. We're going to stay on purpose. We're going to do the things that are purposeful, that's focused on goals and targets. And I never even was thinking about goals and targets before, right?
Yeah.
Before the mentorship program. And so I think that was a very pivotal time to join in 2016, I believe it was when I started learning
Mhm.
about Grant Cardone. And the way that he taught was different, totally different than what you learn in school, what you hear from your parents,
Right.
what you learn in life. It was a different type of concept. And I think that was a pivotal time right there for me to embrace that knowledge and role plays. I had never done a role play before,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Like what with other with other people regarding my business.
Hmm.
That was in corporate. I'd worked in corporate, and we had to do that inside of the classroom. To get better with the phones there. But for my own business, I had not done that before. I didn't even know how to make my own scripts at the time. So I think I think that was a pivotal time for me to just be able to be accepting of change, because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, there is a change that needed to happen. There's some shedding of self that needed to happen. There's some shedding of old habits and old ways and hurts and hangups and all those kinds of things that had to be let go in order for you to step into this new found lifestyle that you want to create, or to be in a position to be able to help other people. Some of that stuff really has to be let go, and you can't be stubborn to want to hold on to things, because if you continue to do, as we all know, the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different things to happen, is not going to happen. You're still going to get the same exact results. So I think by coming into the 10X community and ex- and investing, that's what it is. I call it investing in myself, in my
Absolutely.
future, in my finances, and in my education, and in my mindset, has been the turning point for me to be able to excel.
This is Coach Gary. Wanted to take a moment, got to pay some bills here. I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's extremely important to me, and honestly is one of the primary reasons I've had the success so far last year and this year that I have, and that is 10X Health. So before we show you a little information about 10X Health, I wanted to say my energy is up, my clarity is up. I'm down 37 pounds. I've got the go-ahead, that vigor to play with my little girl, to enjoy time with my wife, and I keep looking forward to continuing to improve, and that is in large part thanks to 10X Health. So if you've been feeling that your energy is low, if you don't have that drive, that motivation that you feel that you really should, especially for the guys out there, it's not all about stuff in the bedroom. There's other things that can be fixed, that can be going on. So if you're looking for that, if you feel those things, it's time. 10X Health is your ticket.
Yes. Okay. And that, it's interesting because I've heard other people have those moments, right, where it's all on the line, and sometimes it's a sharp transition, and I think it seems like for you it was all there, and you committed to it fully, but it's maybe a little more gradual, building to its fullness. Is that fair to say, or am I maybe interpreting wrong?
I would say that's fair to say, because I did do the mentorship program, but I think because I'm more of a hands-on person, the coaching, becoming a coach, actually solidified it for me a little bit more better, because I was able to be around all of you that I'm seeing that's actually doing the work. I'm seeing the progression, right? I'm seeing the progression as it's happening. We're able to have conversations about the things that we may be struggling with, so to speak, and we're able to work through that and have that mentorship a little bit closer at this particular point for me. I think that was a step to help me to start getting into the mindset of learning and thinking bigger. And now it's more in the mindset of executing
Right.
and being able to help other people to do the same.
Yes, and I think that's a very interesting uh, perspective that you drew there, and really focus in on is the difference between being open to the learning and then actually executing, right? And knowing that those are
Mhm.
very, very different. And something that I think oftentimes people challenged to make that transition. And when they do make the transition, then it's back into being consistent and persistent, because oftentimes it can be easy to learn but challenging to put into place. So and I agree with you. I think for myself personally too, the coaching really helps cement it. Seeing how it works, and seeing the challenges that others come up with, and really recognizing, like, okay, we're all kind of the same here. There's changes, everything's a little unique, but at the end of the day, we're all kind of in the same path, just at different stages and with different outlooks.
Right. And it wasn't that I wasn't taking steps. I was taking steps at the time, but
Mhm.
not like this is
Of course.
more on a massive level right now right? And I think it's also being in the same Zoom sessions, because that's what we're having, and having those conversations. And you don't want to show up every week and not winning, right? Because we share
Yeah, yeah,
wins, and so you want to show up there. That accountability is real, and that you want to show up and you want to be showing that you're winning as well, and being able to give your wins and be able to share how you're coming along in the program, and how you're being able to really help other people, and how they are actually able to benefit from the coaching that you're having as well, and accountability groups as well, and the training, because we have to train in order to get
absolutely.
better at our skills and our crafts. So yeah, I think it's that wanting, you just want to show up and you want to be like, yeah, I'm winning too here.
Absolutely, yes. And everybody wants a piece of it, but it requires putting in the work, putting in that effort to make those achievements, to hit those attainments. Otherwise, it's just kind of, you show up and you want to do it, but if the work's not there, then it's not there. And I think you certainly are putting in that work. And I know from outside of this conversation, of course, and in our other conversations, your recent wins have been massive. So it certainly, it's compounding as well. I want to just circling back a little bit though, and on your decision to risk it, and join the mentoring, and then again to become a coach, and I'm sure in other areas as well. When you're facing those, and I'll call them high risk decisions, and not to say that they're rash or they're dangerous, but there's a lot maybe involved. There's a lot on the line. How would you say is your approach to making those decisions, and how maybe has that evolved?
So in the beginning, it was more like, oh, no, I don't think I could do that. I can't, I don't think I could do that. No, that's not a good idea. I don't think I'm going to be able to, it was like I'm holding back. Right. And I think when you're holding back like that, it really stops you from being able to actually progress. I've learned now really that, mentorship, coaching, education is the thing that shapes us.
Mm.
And in the beginning, when I was before I made the jump, I was scared. I was nervous. I was unsure. There was uncertainty. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to produce. So I want to say that how that has transformed is, instead of focusing on one of the things that has stuck with me that Grant has always said, is, instead of saying that what is the way that he said, if you want to buy something, right? Instead
Mm-hmm.
of focusing on, um, trying to save, because he used to talk about
Yes.
saving turning his parents the lights, right? Turning off the lights,
Yeah,
so that the
yeah.
lights is not running up the electricity, all these different things like that, right? So instead of focusing on saving, focus on how can I make more.
Yes.
So that's the transition right there. Instead of focusing
Mm.
on, okay, how can I save, how can I save, how can, the light bills, oh, the light bill's going to be high this month. Oh, so that means I got to turn off the lights, or I got to use less water, or, go to less events, instead of
Mhm.
focusing on that and pulling back. I can't remember the term that he uses for that. Instead of being conservative, is how can I make more so that I can do more in those areas of life?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that then shifts our attention into the growth, the expansion, the learning, the what can I do next?
Yeah.
And it shifts then from average, right? I think it's average to save. That's classic. As Grant would put it, that's the middle
Right.
class trap. It's the middle class thinking, and I think many of us grew up that way, getting yelled at, turn off the lights when you leave the room, or and those sorts of
Right.
things. I mean, and sure, there's some value to let's not be wasteful, But also
Yeah.
saving that light switch is not the make or break difference, right? What can we do to go earn more?
Right.
That is the make or break. And in earning, I think it means something in different scenarios. It's oftentimes financial, but what can we do to earn more in our relationships? And maybe that's in the form of love or enjoyment or sharing experiences. And those are the other places then where that expansion versus the contraction really, I think, shows and compounds. So thank you for sharing. I think that really hits into a lot of it there. And part of it as well then is, and you've said it, a willingness to grow, a willingness to take on new things. And I think of that in kind of terms of adaptability and innovation. So I'm wondering, as you face these changes, how do you stay adaptable? When is too much change too much, or how do you stay fluid and continue to accept those?
So how do I stay fluid in change? First of what I've learned, one of the things that I had to learn the hard way is to take care of self.
Mm,
And as you take care of self, self will take care of you. If you take care of the temple will take care of you. So
yeah.
what I've learned is that when you need to get the right amount of sleep, you need to I need to make sure I'm hydrated, that I'm eating the right foods and making sure that, I can focus, making sure I get rid of the stresses, and I think that for the most part, it's just making sure that your body is well. That's been one of the main things for me is taking care of the temple, because when it's not taken care of, then you're lethargic, you're tired,
Mm-hmm.
maybe high grade migraines, health issues, and things like that. So that is how I know when enough is enough, and now it's time to take a minute to rest, re revitalize myself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, you know, go into a state of where I'm going into praying, um, and just having that one-on-one time with God, rather that's worship music,
Mm-hmm.
um, with just me and Him or whatever the case may be. But it's a reset, right?
Yeah.
And then once I get through that reset period, it may be that, like today, it was home all day, and I took care of those things that needed to be taken care of, like laundry and like cleaning off my desktop and making sure I update my computer,
Yeah. Very important.
and making sure my scheduling, so I think for the most part, it's just knowing when to take a moment to reset, recalibrate, and then get going again.
Yes. Okay. And that makes so much sense, especially when in what you talked on earlier about accepting ourselves. So if we accept ourselves and we know where that limit is, and then we can take that step back, or maybe it's not a step back, maybe it's just a pause, and give ourselves that opportunity to really rejuvenate and get ready to then begin again, or to push harder, or to re-engage at a next level, then that truly comes from first knowing ourselves. So that, as you're saying it, I'm connecting all the dots here with the different aspects, right, and how it all comes together. And I think that what that also probably lends itself to is maybe your definition, and I know it, in 10x we tend not to say work-life balance, right? It's almost a dirty phrase. But I think when we say that, most people have a general understanding of what it is we mean by that. So I'm curious to hear what your version or idea of work-life balance is, or if you reject that phrase, then what's your alternative? What your way of approaching that whole person in a working world, but of course with other priorities as well.
My definition of work-life balance. Interesting that you said that because I know when I first started my business, I was talking about work-life balance a lot.
Mm,
And I think that's evolved now because actually you do have to have a certain level. So when I think of 10x is in every area of life, right?
Yeah.
So if that is the case, that you should have 10x in your faith, your finances, your mission, your focus, which is your mindset, your career, your children and things like that. It just means that you need to be able to set aside a certain amount of time for all those areas in order for things to run smoothly, right?
Yeah.
And you will find out when you start to neglect a certain area, you're going to have issues in that particular area. If you neglect your spouse, you're going to have issues in that area. If you neglect your work, then you're going to see a decrease in your finances. If you neglect your children, you might start to see some issues in that area as well.
Mhm.
So when I think about it, it's just making sure that, that I've given attention to all the areas that matter the most, right?
Yeah.
And then anything else outside of that, then I'm working on those things as well. I have appointments. I work on my appointments. I work on making sure that, I have time with my son. I make sure I get my breakfast, so it's just having some type of schedule, I think is the main thing. So I'm
Wow.
having
Okay.
some type
Okay.
of schedule in place and understanding though that you got to have a flexibility because sometimes that schedule may change.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you may have a hiccup in the computer. Sometimes your phone may just decide to do its own thing. Sometimes you may wake up with a migraine headache or something like that and it throws you off a little bit. So it's having a schedule, but also knowing that it may not be perfect each and every single day that you're approaching this schedule. But the goal and the ultimate goal is for that day is to get those things done.
Mhm.
So you may say that, okay, well, I'm going to try to do these 10 things in today. Well, what if you only get 9 of them done? Are you going to fall apart? No,
Yeah.
you may have to reschedule it for another day and come back to it, is what I do. So if it's not able to get done on that particular day, then I may have to put it to another day or spend a little less time on something else
Mm.
so that I can get that thing accomplished.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that things are always in balance, but it's more so being
No,
intentional and giving the focus in each area so that they're they're cared after, they're cared for, they're taken care of. That each area is being successful in its own right, and that may mean more or less time in a given time period or at a given amount of energy, but the end result is that you are winning across those plateaus. And I think that what you said there really resonates with me as well, and especially with the 10x Super Life. Both the book and the exercise, I always come back to that, and especially it's frustrating sometimes when one area is maybe pulling from where we would like to focus, and then recognizing, okay, no, where do I need to be focused? And if it is in this where it's being pulled, then so be it. I need to accept that and be intentional with it, take care of that, and then that will allow me to build up my other areas. Otherwise, as you said, as you neglect one, you'll see those consequences, not just there, but in the other areas as well. And I think that's so important to keep in mind. Okay, awesome,
right.
awesome. Um, and what and you I'm thinking I'm thinking this and as I'm saying it I'm realizing you probably already answered this, but what habits or maybe techniques have you found? And you said very clearly schedule. So how do you schedule? Are you using time blocks? Are you using a digital calendar? Are you writing on paper? What is your version of scheduling, and how has that worked for you?
So right now, the scheduling that I am using is a planner.
Mm,
I have had to, in the past, I did realize that a planner works best for me
okay, perfect.
because if I scribble it down on a piece of paper, the likelihood of knowing where that piece of paper went or what side of the page is on is
Yeah.
slim.
Oh yeah.
So it's better to keep everything in one place so that way I can find it. And when you call and the client asks, hey, what days do you have available for this or that?
Mhm.
Then I'm able to say what days I have available because I have the calendar right in front of me. Now I also do use I'm using Go High Level,
Okay.
which if someone's listening to this and not really sure what that is or how to use it, I'm happy to help with that. But Go High Level is a platform that allows you to be able to do a multitude of different things from one place, like being able to get scheduled calls, like Zoom calls and appointments and things like that.
Mhm.
So I on some of my landing pages, I am using those, and as those appointments come in, though, I write them inside the planner because
Okay.
again, I need everything to be in one place, and in order for me to be successful at my schedule, I just physically need to be able to see it. I have tried using the phone for scheduling, but because there's certain parts of the day where I keep the phone on silent, I don't always hear
Mhm.
when that appointment may come in.
Sure. Sure.
So that hasn't worked for me. But the scheduling tool that I have, the actual handheld planner, definitely has been functional for me to be able to see, what the whole month looks like,
Mhm.
what's happening in a full day, what time it is, how long it's going to be, and what I have available is definitely that is the one tool that I found that has been successful for me.
Perfect. Perfect. And as I think, I tend to use my Outlook calendar, but then for notes and things that are really important, right? So I use that, and it notifies me when the next appointment is, but I don't keep any detail in there. If I'm looking for that, then I tend to keep not a planner per se, but a notebook, and I just have a running series of notebooks, and I know the dates, and I'll oftentimes scan those in then to my CRM, but it's the notebook I look to. If I can't find it, then I go to the CRM, and maybe that's a little backwards because I can just search for it, and I use HubSpot, which is very similar to Go High Level in some regards. Um, but I go to that paper, and I think that for me that makes perfect sense, right? Because it's in the one spot, we know where it's at, it's worked for many years, right? And we don't need to rock that boat because it still works, and the digital products are just replicating what that planner sets out. Perfect. And that then leads then to, as you're organizing your day, as you're really staying focused on what it is that you're trying to affect, and what you're impacting. I'm wondering if you've thought on the legacy maybe that you'd like to leave, and particularly through your business endeavors. How will that leave a lasting impact, and what does that impact look like?
So I have often thought about the legacy, which is one of the reasons why I my son is helping with the business, because in order to help with that legacy, he has to know how to run it, how to take care of it, how all these parts work, like Go High Level and scheduling and, creating content. As a social media sales and marketing coach, there's a lot that goes into using the scheduling tool to be able to create content for other clients who may need me to help run their social media accounts. So in doing so, it's showing and teaching him how to create that content and where to go to publish that content. So basically, he'll help with publishing it, but I have to oversee it and approve it before it actually goes out.
Yeah.
So that is the legacy, making sure that, everything is taken care of for him specifically. So in that, the goal that I've had so far is basically just to teach him the whole ropes, so that God forbid, he is able to sustain and keep it moving forward should he decide to do that. Or if
Okay.
not and decide to sell, that it will be sustainable to where he would be able to do that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that is so important, I think, to think of and to lay that out. And I love that it's involving your son. I just always find that whenever we can involve family with the business, it can be so impactful, it can be so rewarding on different levels. Of course, professionally and financially and so on, but really then bringing in that a whole nother depth on the personal front. And that really then leads to other than financial successes and measures of success. And I imagine that you've thought on that as well as what does it look like outside of simply the financial, because of course it's baked in, it's business, it's for profit. But outside that financial, what else does that look like? Those those successes or achievements, and I think part of it would be that your son is able to take it over if he wants to. But what else might that look like as far as non-financial measures of success?
Non-financial measures of success. I would say the non-financial measures of success would more so lie in the mission, the goals, him being able to have, conversations with other CEOs or business people in the world and be able to make the right types of financial decisions concerning his life and concerning his future,
Mm,
is also a part of that. Being able to, just being able to make the right decisions. I think when it comes to being self aware, raising a family, maybe purchasing a home or a vehicle or whatever it is that he may decide to pursue. My goal as a parent is to do what my grandparents and my parents and mentors along the way did for me, and that is instill all the qualities uh, of being a business minded entrepreneur and being capable of being able to push through regardless of the trials and tribulations that you may be presented with, and how to take that and focus on the solutions. One of the things I've been going through is Grant Cardone's uh, 20 traits of a great attitude. And,
yeah.
one of those is just focusing on the solution and not necessarily the problem. So it's teaching him how to focus on that. What does that look like? How do I get past this hurdle that may be presented to me right now? So I think that's important. What the?
Perfect, perfect. And with all of that, then I think it really brings together your goals across multiple fronts. So with that, I thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, it's always a great time when we're able to chat and exchange ideas and share our thoughts and help each other really grow. But I think especially in this setting, to get to know at a deeper level your story and your path and where it is that you're headed, from a different mindset than, or a different viewpoint, I should say, than we normally do, and whether it be the accountability groups or otherwise. So with that, thank you again for coming on. And for those who are wondering, geez, I really want to find out more about Tiffany. I want to maybe work with you, partner with you. What is the best way for them to reach out and get a hold of you and take advantage of your amazing skill sets and talent?
One of the best ways to get in contact with me, I'll give you two. First of all, Tiffany C Everett.com /grow GROW is the best way to get in contact with me if you are looking to schedule a one-on-one conversation or strategy session with me to see how I can help you to be able to grow in your sales and social media marketing. Also, you can connect with me on my Instagram account at Tiffany C Everett as well, where I provide daily tips on how to increase your faith, finances, and your focus, as well as provide some inspiration, a daily dose of inspiration every single day. So it helps to keep you connected and helps you to keep, motivated. And, so there's so much that we're going through in this day and age in life. And just that little dose of motivation may be that one thing that helps to brighten your day. So feel free to follow me on Tiffany C Everett on Instagram or connect with me at tiffanyceverett.com/grow.
Perfect. And don't forget the /grow. Very important there. So thank you so much again for having come on, and I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you soon, of course, and collaborating again in the near future.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Grow with Gary. You're officially one step closer to crushing your business goals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Connect with Gary by reaching out on social media at McHughGrowth or online at mchughgrowth.com/podcast. And be sure to include a comment with your top takeaway. Until next time, this has been Grow with Gary.